I told you a couple weeks ago that Donald Trump took the fewest days, the smallest amount of time of any recent president to get to 50% disapproval, right? Donald Trump got to 50% disapproval in only 8 days. It took other presidents hundreds of days, even over 1,000 days for some recent presidents. There's a growing problem that goes beyond just approval for President Donald Trump, though, and that's that Americans increasingly think that he's not a competent leader, okay? Very interesting new Quinnipiac poll. It does look at approval rating, which is down now to 38%, very, very low for Donald Trump. But Quinnipiac asked another interesting question, which is, do you believe, separately from whether you approve of the job that he's doing, do you believe Donald Trump is a good leader? Because you could think of Donald Trump as a good leader who's doing things you don't approve of, right? Only 42% of Americans think that Donald Trump is a good leader, compared to 55% who say he is not. Donald Trump's claim to fame is supposedly being a good leader. Remember, running the best businesses, hiring the best people. By the way, how funny is that? That campaign promise that he was going to put the best people around him. That obviously didn't happen. This represents a major change in public opinion. In November, after the election, 56% of Americans told Quinnipiac, same polling agency, same methodology, that Trump was a good leader. That has dropped nearly 20 points. And if you consider that Trump lost the popular vote, but 56% of Americans in November still thought he was a good leader, you don't get those numbers by accident. Clearly, there were people in that poll who didn't vote for Trump, but believed that he did have leadership skills. It's gone downhill. As soon as Donald Trump started doing stuff, the abortive transition period, the embarrassing hires, Americans increasingly don't see him as a good leader. And that is really a crucial aspect of the Trump cult of personality.
What's amazing is that there's still people who do think that he's a good leader and that he's somehow an intelligent person. I mean, yes, we go back to his business credentials. I don't think good leaders have their companies go bankrupt 6 times. We know that he inherited his fortune from his father. Yes, Donald Trump does have talents. I think he's good at appealing to a crowd, and I think that's evidenced because, he was able to get elected. But he certainly is not a good leader.
Trump attacking the media, also not playing well with Americans. The whole trying to turn the people, as he calls them, against the media. So far, it's working with some committed Trumpists, but 90% of those surveyed say they believe it is, quote, very important or somewhat important that journalists hold public officials accountable. And 50% disapprove of how media has covered Trump. At least people overwhelmingly are still recognizing the importance of critical media. My reaction to this polling is, well, yeah, but if I'm not trying to play the if only game, right? We could do the if only FBI Director James Comey hadn't written that letter. If only people had realized that Donald Trump is not a good leader during the campaign. We today have a president who cannot speak at length about any issue, cannot put sentences together with anything but the simplest structure, has no attention span, doesn't read, can't control himself to avoid reacting childishly to whatever is on the TV in front of him. The correct assessment of Trump is that he is not a good leader, that he can't be trusted, and that he doesn't know anything. But to jump on what you're saying, Pat, I actually am more disturbed by the fact that 42% do think he's a good leader. What are they thinking?
Especially because he's been in the public eye for decades now. I mean, people know this. They've seen so many interviews with him. And this hasn't changed since he's become president. And we know that from his recent press conference. That was a disaster, an hour long of just, a mess of words.
Total mess, gong show. Here's what I want you to tell me about on Twitter. I'm on Twitter at @DPakman. The show's on Twitter at David Pakman Show. When will we, and if you believe we will, when will we see Donald Trump's approval rating dip into the 20s? Do you think that will happen, and how soon? Let me know. I'm on Twitter at @DPakman.